Hello and welcome to Andy's FPL Apprentice. I'm Andy and I'm joined again by Will, my good friend and FPL novice, as we reveal our updated drafts for the 2022-23 season. So thanks again for joining me, Will. So today we're going to have a look at our updated drafts. I was going to say our team reveals for game week 1, but little caveat, there's a few days to go, and let's be honest, there's a good chance we'll both be tinkering, but we can...
Everything's fluid.
Absolutely, yeah, but we can cover those thoughts as well. So, to start you off, I will show you my updated draft, which has no change for goalkeeper. I've still got Raya in goal.
Understandable.
Yeah, I don't need to say too much on that, because I covered it in the last one. So we'll move straight on to the defence, which currently is looking like Ben Chilwell is still there. Robertson is still there. Trent Arnold is still there. And Cancelo has come into the defence. And
Very nice.
Importantly, you'll notice there's only 4 of them there. I've changed to a 4 at the back.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you started off as a big fiver.
I did start with a big fiver, yeah. I'll come on to the bench later, but I realised there's a couple of £4 million, like I think playing players, defender-wise, and so I could save a little bit of money there by having them on the bench instead of having a 4.5 million midfielder. So
sure.
that's kind of what's convinced me to change formation, and I'm pretty sure that'll stay. And then lastly, Cancelo. Again, just ignoring my own advice. I always try and pick my draft by putting in players that you want, like the most important ones. So, like for me, it was Trent and Salah. They're in absolute lock. One of the Chelsea fullbacks was always going to be in there, and Cancelo was always going to be in there. And then you fill in the rest by what money you have left. And and I then ignored that in trying to get the team that I wanted. I was like, well, I can just downgrade Cancelo. So yeah, I felt like that was a mistake, and I've found a way to get him back in.
You've redrafted.
I've redrafted. Yeah.
I think it's right. I think it's the way to go.
Yeah, agreed. So moving on to the midfield, I've got an interesting one first. I've got Bailey from Villa.
Okay.
Yeah, he's only 5 million, and I remember when he signed, like there was sort of quite a lot of fanfare about it, and he sort of had a difficult first season. Never really got a run of games. Had a couple of niggly injuries as well. But he has apparently had a really good pre-season, and I saw Gerrard saying, I think he came off the bench in one pre-season game, and Gerrard said, if I was picking my team now, he'd definitely be in there because he came on and really sort of changed the game for them. And 5 million, it just seems an absolute bargain. The issue that I have with it is that Villa have got 3 good games and then their fixtures get tough. So
they're absolute dross.
Yeah, so it might be a really short-term punt for me, but
I guess the risk there is for 5 million, what are you going to be able to change him for?
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, there's always the potential then of maybe there's areas of your team that aren't quite working for you. Say I've got Liverpool like double defence at the moment, so say Liverpool concede a couple of goals in the first couple of matches, defence doesn't look quite as watertight as I was thinking. Well, that seems an obvious place to downgrade. And so you could either upgrade Bailey, or at that point you could say, like if he has started the season playing, you could think maybe at 5 million is your bench option, and you just rotate him in them for the good fixtures and take him out when not.
That's fair. It does seem very cost effective.
And then the rest of the midfield, Salah's still in there, Martinelli's still in there, and I've gone for Grealish as my 4th midfielder.
Big vote for Jack.
Yeah. So I'll tell you now, this is not locked in.
How much is Grealish running at?
He's 7 million.
Oh, that's less than I sort of anticipated.
So I think Grealish had a lively pre-season, and there seemed to be a decent link up between him and Haaland in the very little time that they played together.
Mm-hmm.
I think they've only really got. There's always options with City because they always they will rotate players, and Pep is not afraid of playing players not so much out of position, but he likes flexibility. So I can see Bernardo playing wide, and I can see Alvarez playing wide, even though it's not their preferred positions. But really, they've only got 3 senior wingers, and that's including Foden there, who, of course, arguably his preferred position is centre mid. And City's fixtures are good, and I always say, if you can get the right City attacking player at the right time, then they're great. It's just the Pep roulette that makes it so difficult.
I think it might be a good call with Sterling leaving. I think Grealish will get that spot more often than not, and he has started pre-season, so it's at least a suggestion. He's got him in his sights.
So that's the midfield, and then no change in attack. I've still got Jesus and Haaland, and also no change in the decision making on Haaland and Kane. Pretty much flip a coin for me.
Yeah.
I think one thing that is slightly swaying me to Kane, even though I've got Haaland in at the moment, is that Haaland hasn't had much pre-season. Kane's had a great pre-season. I could definitely see Haaland hitting the ground running, but it sounded like he was a little leggy during the Community Shield. I think that's completely understandable. I think he played 45 minutes of pre-season. But I wonder whether he's going to get a lot of sort of 70 minutes early on, and he's going to be taken off early quite a bit, just so he builds up that fitness. Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. But I think, I don't know, it's a gamble either way, isn't it? I mean, Kane didn't do as brilliantly last season and could do that again, but with his pre-season being very good, he looks the better candidate maybe at the moment.
Yeah, I think it might end up being one of those that you really sort of agonise over, and then the season starts and they both play well, and it doesn't matter massively. I kind of figure they're both good options. I think eventually I'll pick one of them, but at the moment it's still Haaland. So quickly through the bench, there is a change to the striker, which is I've gone for Taylor at the moment, but it doesn't really matter. I had Force in, I think he's gone out on loan, so not an option. It doesn't really matter. Don't see any of them playing. Still got Pereira in there. And the £4 million defensive option I've gone for is Nico Williams, who is a Liverpool backup fullback who's gone to Nottingham Forest.
All right, okay.
They had Jed Spence last year on loan, who's now gone to Tottenham. And I think they brought in Nico Williams as the replacement. I think
immediate replacement.
Yeah, I think he'll start. It's a wing back as well. They played 3 at the back and wing backs. So potential for attacking returns, but honestly, it doesn't matter too much. For $4 million, it's just a delight to have a defender that I think will start most games.
Better than not playing. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and Begovic is still my backup keeper, but could be anyone. Keeping half an eye on Ward, because I've seen some rumours of Kasper Schmeichel leaving Leicester.
Ooh, interesting.
If that happens, I would expect them to sign someone, but if they don't, then Ward is a £4 million playing goalkeeper, so just want to keep an eye out there.
Oh, that's a very good shout.
Yeah, it's a current draft. The only thing I'm thinking of changing, aside from the toss-up of Haaland and Kane, and also the toss-up of Chilwell and James, is there's a little bit of me that thinks I might be better going for Diaz in the midfield from Liverpool instead of Grealish. And because I would have 4 Liverpool players to do that, I would take Robertson out and I'd downgrade him. Probably back to Zinchenko I've taken out of this draft. The reason I went for Zinchenko as the defender to make way is that I was talking about him playing in midfield, which I still think he will, but Tierney's injured start of the season, so he's almost certainly starting at left back, even if he doesn't play the majority of games there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's my team so far.
All right, interesting changes. So I get on with mine.
Perfect.
Now I've actually taken quite a few of your suggestions on board.
Interesting.
The first of which I think was discussed at the time, which was Sanchez for Guetta.
Mm-hmm.
On the basis that, it seemed less likely that Guetta was going to play regularly. And Sanchez and Guetta were my kind of 1 and 2 last season, and both got game time. So seemed like the perfect change for somebody who will probably play every game of the season.
Yeah, I like Sanchez. I think that's a good pick.
Most of the back four remains the same, and for very similar reasons as you've already said. Cancelo, Robertson, James, fullbacks from what I think will be the best 3 teams this season, and all with attacking prowess. Robertson really against Alexander-Arnold just for that sort of $500,000 saving.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you might have recommended Ben White as another player, and he is
the 4th choice defender for you.
4.5 million.
Yeah.
So it's also nicely priced. The midfield has completely changed, and it's absolutely built around Salah. For quite a while, I really resisted taking out Kev. And I toyed with the idea of Son. But Salah scores so many goals from midfield. It's worth so many points. I just couldn't ignore it. But because he's also, I think, the most expensive player of them all, it meant, quite a lot of changing. And my beloved Bowen from last season was one to make to get the cut. Again, because he's just that $500,000 more than some of his sort of contemporaries. So the midfield now is made up of Zaha, Saka, Norgard, and sort of Souček as well, because I'm not quite sure whether I'm going to go 4-5-1 or stick 4-4-2 at the moment. But Souček at West Ham is currently on the bench.
Yeah, I really like Saka. I think Martinelli covers Saka in my team. Like, I think Saka will score more points, but Martinelli is £2 million less, and I don't
it's a big saving.
Yeah, I don't think that I think if you look at sort of points per million, basically, I think Martinelli will outscore him on that basis, even though I think that Saka will, outscore him overall. And I think I think you need an kind of Arsenal attacking option. Like, they've been scoring so many goals in pre-season, and they've got such good fixtures early on. I think that's a good call. I mentioned Crystal Palace as well for fixtures, which is why I've not been looking at Crystal Palace options. But to kind of the swing of that, I'd say, is that Zaha is obviously the best option of them. Like, he's on penalties. Apparently, he's also had a great pre-season. He's just the kind of fulcrum of their team, isn't he? So if you're going to go for one, then you've gone for the best one. And the fact that he's on penalties and things like that, like, it doesn't quite make him fixture-proof, but,
it helps.
Yeah, there's another way into points, isn't there? Even in those sort of tough games, anyone can be playing Liverpool, Tottenham, Man City. You can, even if he doesn't get many chances, there's still the potential for a penalty in there. I don't mind that pick at all. Norsgaard, I mean, he's going to start, I presume.
I think based on his last season sort of minutes played, he looks like he's most likely to start most matches.
Yeah. Don't mind that. And Souček kind of depends. Like, it is similar to the Declan Rice one. Like, 2 seasons ago, he was scoring a lot of goals, which I think is why his price is higher. And then last season, I don't think he got as forward as he did like the season before. But
he scored half as many goals.
Yeah, so it's it's a little bit risky, but I don't hate it as a punt because, yeah, like he's so good in the air, and like I say, 2 seasons ago he was scoring for fun. Like he was such a good option for FPL. That yeah, you're kind of banking on him returning to that sort of form, but don't hate it.
I sort of see him and the other four as, like I say, either a 4-5-1 or a rotational 4, depending on fixtures. As you say, if Palace are struggling in their early fixtures, I can sort of pop Souček in instead as a half for a little while, or Norgard, Salah, and Saka feel sort of dead on for the most part.
I mean, I'd say with Zaha as well. If you're going to go with him, you kind of need to stick with him, I think, for a little bit because he's got Arsenal up first, Liverpool up second, then Villa, then Man City, and that's 4 tough games. But after that, he's got Brentford, Newcastle, Man United, Brighton, Chelsea. Actually, they are still tough, you know. But there's a couple of easier games in there. Like Brentford definitely got options there. Newcastle, who kind of knows what they're going to do next season. Brighton's definitely easier than some of the others. So I think it's one of them to almost, I'd say, like commit to. If you're going to commit to him, you can't just put him in and go, he hasn't done anything for 2 games, I'm going to take him out. It's like, well, he was never likely to do that much in those games, but it does get easier.
But I also think Palace were genuinely good last season, and I've got a lot of time for Patrick Vieira.
Yeah, agreed.
So my strikers, I stuck with Haaland. Again, it's I always like to have a few City players in. It's incredibly hard to pick the ones that are starting, but between Cancelo and Haaland, I think that they are pretty bob on. I think you could be right that he doesn't play full 90 minutes for the first few matches, as long as he scores within those 70.
Absolutely, it doesn't matter.
I don't mind.
I'd also say, like, Haaland is owned at the moment by just under 50% of managers. He's incredibly popular, so
yeah,
you are not alone in your thinking that he's going to start the season with a bang.
It wouldn't be the first time though a sure thing didn't pan out.
Well, yeah, perhaps.
But I did move up to 2 strikers, or at least have a better quality bench striker than a sort of no play. Who did I have last time in my old team? I think I had Dwight Gale was my.
I think you had Greenwood and Rondon.
Oh, that's right. I had Gale in a much earlier team. Yes. So I still have Rondon on the bench, but I have Tony now in alongside Haaland. As it stands, it is a 4-4-2, but like I was saying, I don't know, I've been considering bringing Souček in for Tony.
I really like the look of Tony. So Brentford's fixtures, you've got Leicester away. I mean, Leicester's defence was terrible last year, so I don't see that as the toughest fixture. Man United at home again.
Easy.
But then they've got Fulham, Everton, Crystal Palace, Leeds, Southampton. Like, you've got a collection there of like some of the worst defences in the league.
Yeah.
Tony got 140 points last year. He's on penalties. He's owned by 5% of managers. I honestly think Tony's a really good pick. Like it.
Yeah, convinced me to keep him in. And then across the bench, I mean, I've already mentioned Rondon and Souček. I brought in Anderson, who I think is an improvement over my previous defensive choice.
I think you had Anderson in last time, I'll be honest. But
oh, did I?
Yeah, I think so.
The previous image I've got of my old team is clearly not the one I sent you. But I've still got Forster in. So actually, yeah, really, my bench has only changed for Souček.
Cool. Yeah, I like it. I've thrown a few thoughts in there, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to dig into your team too much because we've already done that. What I do have for you is a couple of more general tips, I think, for the season. So, tip number 1, and it's an absolute clickbait title, but it is forget differentials. And what I mean by that is forget picking players that are either ignoring the ones that are really highly owned or picking the ones that are like really low owned.
Right.
And this isn't a black and white thing at all, because of course you can take some risks. And also, I should point out, these are tips for getting a good rank. The most fun thing to do is to like pick, risky players all the time, and it is a game at the end of the day. So you're allowed to enjoy playing it. But I'd say like the only thing that matters is points at the end of the day. So there's no point going. It's the Salah Kev thing, isn't it? Like, which one do you think will make more points out of the two of them? Like, it's all right saying like I'll pick Kev because nobody's got Kev, and that will improve me against other players. But if you genuinely believe that Salah's going to get more points than Kev, then pick Salah.
Eventually, where I've come to, I just couldn't say no to him.
Yeah, and the other ththing is, I'd say pick safe picks early on, because there's, it's a long season. But always towards the end of the season, I start getting riskier, because you start sort of chasing rank or chasing places in your mini league or whatever it is, and so like that's when you can afford to be a bit riskier. And also, there are times in the season where you are going to take risks on a player. I just think you want few of those really risky players in your team. Like you know what you're going to get for picking, defensive players from the top 3 defences. If you've got Liverpool, Chelsea, City, Tottenham, like they're going to be up around the best defences in the league. So if you pack your defence with those players, then of course they're going to do well. And I'd say as well on differentials, it includes captaincy. When you get into double game weeks and stuff, you can start taking some punts on captaincy for sure. I'd say if early on, you've got Salah and Haaland at the moment in your team, just pick whoever has the best fixture out of those two.
Yeah. I mean, it's set for Salah as it stands, but Haaland is my vice captain, so it's at least on the same page. But following the fixture, I think is the absolute key piece of advice there.
Yeah. My second tip is preempt trends, which
easy.
Yeah, it sounds a really like obvious and yet impossible thing to do, but there are definite things that you can look for to kind of spot that. I can give you a few examples as well. So I'd say look at injuries. Like, is somebody now a better option because of injuries? So last season, I remember I got Jota in quite early on in the season. I think maybe game week 6 or 7, something like that. Because I was looking and saying, I think at the time Firmino was injured, so I felt like he was going to start like regularly through the middle.
Yeah.
Obviously, Diaz hadn't signed at that point. And also, they were running up towards the African Cup of Nations as well, which obviously meant that Mane and Salah were going to be missing. So I just thought Jota was a nailed-on pick for like 10 game weeks. That he was going to have a real run in the team. And yeah, he didn't have any form leading into that. It wasn't that I was saying like he was,
No.
So you're sort of preempting that he's going to be good at that point, and he was. He was really good for that little period of the season because he started every week in one of the best attacks in the league.
Yeah.
Fixture swings are another one. So I think I said to you about Crystal Palace. I think if I wildcard fairly early, which would make sense, seeing we've got a bonus wildcard this year, I could definitely see myself bringing Crystal Palace players in because they have a real fixture swing. Like, their tough fixtures are all in the first 8 game weeks.
Bottlenecked.
Yeah, which means that they don't have any of those fixtures in the sort of second quarter of the season. So, that's when I'll be looking at, how's Zaha been playing, how's Elise been playing, how's their defence looked, and that's when I could see myself wildcarding, suddenly stacking up on those players.
Mm-hmm.
And last one on that is look at the underlying data. And maybe this is more research that you're prepared to do, and that's absolutely fair enough. But someone like Bowen, for example, last season, got on him fairly early. Like, Antonio scored a few goals early on, but the kind of underlying data was showing that most things were coming through Bowen, even though it was Antonio that was getting the goals, like he was getting chances, he was creating chances. He sort of seemed like the key member of their team. So you kind of got the feeling that he was going to go off, and he did.
He did, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's that foresight which is so hard to get right.
And tip 3 is leave your transfers as late as you can.
Is that to say in general, like every transfer, or?
So I think there are legitimate reasons why you would want to make a transfer early. I think, so going back to Bowen as the example, Bowen, as soon as he had 2 or 3 games on that really good run, suddenly everybody was looking to bring him in. And if you've got a week in between game weeks, there's the potential that he could rise like 0.2 million.
Sure.
And maybe the change that you wanted to make, you're looking and you're thinking, I might get priced out of that. Honestly, I think if you're looking at it and you think, he might rise in price, but you still have the money to transfer him in, for me, I would still wait until as late as possible. Like, things happen all the time. It's not just that you might be looking to bring Bowen in, he might get injured. You might get any number of injuries through your team. Like, it could be anything. Like, I mentioned it on the last video, COVID's still a thing. I still think you'll get players missing matches because they catch COVID, or, you get information through the week, particularly, I think, when you've got the press conferences from the managers, which tend to be like the day before or 2 days before. And just getting that information where, you have David Moyes in his press conference and he goes, well, Bowen's picked up an injury and unfortunately he's not available at the weekend. And you're like, what he brought him in? Suddenly you either sit him on your bench or you waste 4 points on a transfer. So occasionally there are legitimate reasons why you should do it, but I'd say 95% of the time, leave your transfer till late. Wait until you've got some information. Wait until you see those red flags come up on your players.
Yeah, that also seems like a tip-top call.
Yeah, and I think over the course of the season, it really, really makes a difference. Definitely saves those -4s.
I think I did that in my naivety last season, particularly when there was loads of games being postponed and moved around. I think I got rid of one keeper just to bring in another who also wasn't playing that week.
It's easy done, though.
Yeah.
If it helps, I don't think there'll be another season like last season. Like, we've got the World Cup, so it's still a slightly weird season, but it's last season was mad. The amount of double game weeks and games being called off for short notice and made it impossible to plan anything.
Definitely, yeah.
So I don't think that sort of madness will happen again, fortunately.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Well, that's it for our team reveal. If you enjoyed the video, then please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you again on another video.